Hello, and welcome to our WomenHeart Friday Live during our 29 Days of Heart campaign. I'm Selena Gore, the CEO here at WomenHeart. WomenHeart is a national patient-centered organization that supports, educates, and advocates for women living with or at risk of heart disease and fights for heart health equity. As most of you know, February is Heart Month, and it's also Black History Month. So as we are wrapping up this great month, WomenHeart is here with our last live event. WomenHeart is really excited that we have had such a wonderful 29 Days of Heart annual campaign, which is really meant to uplift the voices of Black women with heart disease, to shine a spotlight on health disparities that exist for Black women, and to provide empowering and motivating information about how to take control of your heart health. This brings me to our guest today, Monique Acosta House. She is a WomenHeart champion of the class of 2020, and she had a heart transplant in 2017. But as you will hear, her heart story goes many, many years back. Monique, we're so excited to have you today and to be able to speak with you. And you're not too far from us. You're here in Woodbridge, Virginia, across the river. I know people want to hear your heart story, but first tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are.
Thank you so much, Selena. I'm so grateful to be here and just to represent WomenHeart and share my story and my passion for heart health. Um, as you say, I live here in the DMV, and I currently live in Woodbridge. I am a developmental project manager for a nonprofit. I work with individuals who have disabilities. I am a mom to Asa. He is 18, and he's a good kid, a young man now, right? He's my joy. Um, for hobbies, I've taken up hula hooping in the pandemic. I have a fellow heart sister who is a hula hoop instructor, and I enjoy that. Um, I like nature walks, and I don't get a chance to do it so much, but I still enjoy reading. I'm still a bookworm.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Well, being in the area myself, I know there are lots of great nature walks around. So we're a bit lucky in that way.
Yeah. You're near Great Falls, right? Out that
Yeah,
way?
not too far. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a great, surprisingly, I think this area is very rich for nature activities. So now that we've learned a little bit about you, I'd love for you to share with our audience your heart story.
Thank you. My heart story, like you said, begins a long time ago, over 20 years. I was a student. Um, I call myself the original millennial because I was a super senior. I just decided to take some extended classes because I wasn't quite ready to graduate. I
Yeah.
didn't want to go home, and I really didn't have a passion for a career in front of me. So I decided to stay. I was at Virginia State University, like I said, and I recall feeling fatigue for months,
Mm.
just months, just tired. But I attributed to my lifestyle. I worked, um, and I went to school, and that was kind of my life. And then I was sleeping. I was sleeping long periods of time. Um, and so then I had my boyfriend at the time. He was like, "I think you should get that checked out." He was like, "You didn't do any shopping at Christmas." And I was like, "I'm one of the people. I love holidays. I shop from October to December." And he's like, "You're so tired. You're not even doing the stuff that you love." And I was like, "Yeah." And I kept having this tremendous left arm pain. It woke me up at night.
Wow.
I just couldn't sleep. So finally, I go to the ER, and I had never been before. ER is a very scary place for a 21-year-old when you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And they start looking at my heart. They were asking me about my heart history, and they said, your numbers are erratic. We don't know what's going on, but something's going on. We want you to come back tomorrow for the test. And I said, well, that's an inconvenience. This was on a Sunday. I said, I have school and work. And they're like, well, come in the morning and, we'll get you this test. It was an echocardiogram, the sonogram of my heart. So I had those previously done when I was a child, but I hadn't had anything done recently. So the echo technician, was working diligently, and they stepped out, and then they brought someone else with them, and they talked in hushed tones to themselves over in the corner, and then they stepped out, and then someone with a white coat came in, and I was like, I've got to get to work.
Yeah.
This is taking too long.
Long. Yeah.
And they were like, Miss Acosta, I'm sorry, you're not going to work today. We're going to admit you to the hospital. You are in heart failure,
Wow.
and your ejection fraction is between 10 and 13%.
Wow. So your heart was working 10 and 13%.
Yes. And so I want to just clear up, because a lot of times people think, when you say, people say, well, my heart was only working. The normal range for ejection fraction, which was reinforced through my WomenHeart training, is between 50 and 70%. 100% never happens, because your heart is squeezing like this, right? So it's compressing. My heart was working so hard, and it wasn't pushing the nutrient rich blood to go through. So it's just doing this instead of squeezing and pushing all that to perfuse my organs and the rest of my body. So I was there in cardiac intensive care unit. And when I walked in, everyone stared at me. Like everyone, like they just stopped. So I got to the room and I asked the nurse, why did everybody look at me? She says, we've never seen anyone walk into CCU.
Wow.
People are coming here after surgery. They are not even awake. And you have on pants and a handbag. And you're so young.
Yeah.
That experience really taught me how to partner with your physician and to have a relationship. I learned that really early because I didn't know what to do. They discharged me from the hospital, and I said, well, what do I do now? And they said, find a good cardiologist. Here are two. You're going to need some intensive management. And out of that, I was able to enlist into a clinical trial.
Wow.
And that trial saved my life. I was the only person of color in their 20s at that location at VCU in Richmond. That's where I was in the trial. And what's really interesting is that they did a retro analysis maybe 20 years later, just recently, saying that particular drug was the right one for me. So even though the cohort of people that were in there were Caucasian, male, 60, that drug saved my life and brought my ejection fraction back to 50%.
Wow.
So I'm going to fast forward to 2016. And so I have been living with heart failure. I have had opportunities to thrive, and then I had a downward turn. And I will say part of that was I didn't adhere to diet and exercise. I stopped doing what I was doing. So I always try to share with people that exercise and diet, they matter. They matter a lot. It was my lifeline. And because I had extenuating family circumstances, I stopped that. And very quickly, my heart started to fail again.
Wow.
And then I was in the hospital, and I just recall the physicians, the team in. I had been there for 7 days. And they said, well, it's time. I'm like, great, it's time to go home. And they said, no, it's time for a transplant.
Wow.
And my whole world changed. And because of how severe my heart failure was, I was blessed to receive my gift within 5 months.
Wow.
A donor match happened for me. And my donor's name is Lisa. And I call my heart my Lisa heart.
Yeah.
And so I am incredibly grateful to have two hearts to love. And so, I tell people to love your heart. It works so hard for you. And I do things now in memory of my heart. Like I have this bottle of water here. It's for my heart. It's not just for me. It's for my heart, so I can be here with you, Selena.
Wonderful. Wow. I mean, just an incredible story. I mean, I know, you were so young, and while, maybe we shouldn't be surprised, we know that African American disproportionately experience high rates of heart disease.
Nearly 48% of women, my training taught me,
Yeah.
yeah, of African American women have heart disease.
And many of them don't know it. I mean, I think
Yeah,
that's really, one of the reasons why we are here as an organization. I still think though we can be dismayed by what you experience, just sort of given all the history that you've shared. It showcases why it's so important for us to have this campaign, for us to speak with you today, and to make sure that women know the signs and symptoms of heart disease. It sounds like you had a lot of angels along the way who said, you need to seek care because you're not quite yourself. You're not quite
yeah, and I've
this.
exactly, and, telling me that, but then once I became a patient, understanding, listening to my body, there's been instances I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm feeling this way, and if it's going to be an issue, I'll reach out. Hey, I think I'm having palpitations. I end up having to have ICD and a defibrillator, internal defibrillator,
Mhm.
and those things work to save your life. They call it therapy, but it's a shock.
That's
And
right.
just like, I watched the other with the marathon heart champion. She talked about how the impact of it.
Oh, the thing that shot her back. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had one of those, and and they call it therapy. Oh, it just gave you therapy. No, it's a shock. It really shocks you back because your heart is in a rhythm. My heart rhythm would go to 230. That's not sustainable with life. That's what they would tell me. That's not sustainable with life.
No, it
Yeah.
definitely isn't. So, given that you had it such a young age, you were saying just when you were finishing college, and then you got married and you started a family. How did your heart disease impact all of those life transitions?
That's a great question. I believe that the emphasis now for women to be screened for heart disease at a younger age is so important. I believe that, women in their 20s need to know what their baseline numbers are. I was aware of my blood pressure. I knew my blood pressure. I really didn't check my cholesterol level. I wasn't, we're supposed to know five, right? Of course, I knew my BMI. Everyone knows what they weigh.
Yep.
We don't like that. But, it did cause limitations on things that I could do. So, limitations on traveling.
Mm,
I didn't want to travel certain places because I need to make sure that they had good health care if I got sick. In terms of having a family, I was a very high risk pregnancy. So I had to seek specialized care. And then it's also the family dynamics. It's a stress on your mate, it's a stress on your parents, it's stress on people who love you because they want to care for you. But it also gives me an opportunity to educate them. So they saw my diet change, they saw my lifestyle change, they saw me be an advocate for their health as well.
right. And so, I mean, that's a good segue to a question that I was wondering about. Given your experiences, everything that you've experienced and where you've gotten to today, what sort of advice would you have for other women about taking care of their heart health or being aware of their risks for heart disease? I think especially today in this heightened level of stress, given the pandemic and everything that we're dealing with, what sort of advice would you give?
Yeah, I know a lot of people talk about being mindful and being intentional. But if you relate that to your everyday, so and knowing that everything matters, every little bit matters. I have this big water bottle here because I was having difficulty, drinking my water. But it's important to me because as a heart patient, I have to worry about my kidney health.
Yes.
And knowing every little bit matters. So maybe I want to start walking 5 miles. Just start walking around the block.
Right.
Having those steps and being in tune with your body, making sure that you love your body. Again, I tell people to treat their body like it's their best friend. Nurture it, love it, and pause. I mean, we live in a society where it's just the rat race. You go 100 miles an hour all the time. Leave early and drive in the right lane. It may not seem like a big thing, but just the sense of I'm prepared, I'm not rushing, that does help with the overall anxiety. COVID has taught us a lot about mental health and anxiety. And even as, you know, there's low class and middle class Americans have different types of anxiety. I don't live in a food desert. I don't have to worry. I can walk 5 minutes and there's a safe way. But just being intentional about your health wherever you are, I think that and seek out the quality of like women heart organizations like us.
Yeah. I took a note when you said right, drive in the right lane. I think I can take a page out of your advice book. 'Cause, I certainly need to think that way. And I agree with you when you take your time, it really matters in
It
terms of
matters. Yeah. And I've started a bedtime ritual. I never had one before. It's just like, shower, you know,
yeah,
fold some clothes, get in bed.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I've started now to be mindful. I like, reading. I like quotes. So I'll read some
Mhm.
quotes before I go to bed. I have a gratitude journal, and I don't make it I have to write 10 things. Maybe it's two things I'm grateful for. I was grateful for, the sun today. I was grateful that I had a great salad. I was grateful that my son, who's 18, who doesn't like to hugged me.
Oh, yeah, all of those things matter. That's
Mhm.
wonderful. So, we said at the top of the hour that you're a Women Heart champion, which is one of the wonderful things about my job is to get to meet women like you. This means though that you're not just a volunteer, but you went through hours and hours of training by the top experts in this country on not just cardiology in general, but cardiology in women in particular. And faculty from the Mayo Clinic were the ones really sort of spearheading that training, and really to enable you all, empower you all to provide peer support, to provide community education, and to tell your story, just like you're doing with us today. Now, you are a part of the class of the pioneering class, in fact, of 2020, because it was our first virtual class of champions. What did it mean to you to be part of that training, and to be sort of brought into the Women Heart community through such a rigorous training?
Oh, it's impacted my life in such a wonderful way. The training was so quality. It was so rich. Dr. Sharon, just all the experts, they talked to us in a manner that was scientific, but it was personable and it was relatable. It was the same way that I talk to people about the information. So it was a model. It was the information. Now it was a lot. You had to do the modules. It,
Yeah,
it was not a walk in the park. It wasn't just like, here, read this manual. You had to really stay in tune, keep up with it. It was like taking a class. And I took it very seriously. And the in person meetings, and just the interaction and learning the stories of the other champions. People say, "Oh wow, heart transplant," but "Oh wow, widowmaker." I had the same awe of the other transplant, the other heart survivors.
yeah,
Um, but it's just given me such a confidence to
yeah.
share when people call, because I am a resource now. People say, "Hey, my mom's in the hospital. She's had this heart event. What should I ask them?" Or they say they're going to do this procedure. What does that mean? It's not just a paper. It's a lived experience now.
Yeah, and we shared before we started, Monique, that because you're a transplant recipient, COVID has been particularly isolating. Just sort of given the risk around being immunocompromised, and I just had the thought now that the fact that we were able to offer this training virtually means that you were really able to participate fully, whereas it wouldn't have been possible before. Can you sort of just talk about community that you've been able to kind of, build through the virtual world now, over the last 2 years? Because I just think
Yeah.
it's really, we go back and forth. Do we go back to in person? Do we not? But I think there are some really specific benefits to the virtual world.
Exactly. It's more intimate. So I will maybe do a workshop of women,
Mm-hmm.
and I can take their questions one on one,
Yeah.
instead of them feeling like they're isolated, like, or maybe they feel like they're putting their problems on blast. It's just 20 people, and they
Mm-hmm.
say, what do you think about this? You know, I've been having this symptom. Do you think I should get this checked out? They're more, able in a smaller personal environment. So these virtual platforms, Zoom, Teams, they've actually been, I think it's been a good experience. And I do miss going to the bigger platforms and you're on panels and you can share and it's more interaction. But the impact, I don't think has decreased at all. If anything, it's more impactful.
I think we are starting to really recognize the value of the experience we've had. One of the silver linings of this pandemic has been our greater ability to reach folks through virtual platforms. And, I think you're a
Yeah.
good
Just
example.
like within the training, there were more questions, and one of the physicians said, what? Off script. I'll be available, this night, and you can come back and we can ask and entertain more questions. That couldn't happen. Like we were just gonna go to a conference room, everyone's gonna come back and convene. That
Yeah.
that would have never been able to happen. So it has a lot of advantages.
Monique, I want to ask you one more question, and then we will wrap up. It's around, I certainly, from speaking with you, I've certainly learned or got the sense that you feel truly empowered to advocate for your health. And I think that that is a leap that many women still need to make. Can you talk just a little bit about how you might encourage women who may be feeling symptoms, are not sure what to do, maybe don't prioritize themselves, maybe don't know how to ask for things when they do see their doctor? How might you advise them to live their best life? Maybe
Yeah.
with heart disease, but I think there is a gap in some ways between what women know they might need to do for themselves and what they actually feel that they are able to do for themselves.
That's a great observation. Again, for me, it goes back to doing the small steps.
Hmm.
So I tell women to have a journal,
Hmm.
have just a journal. So that way you're preparing yourself for the appointment. I'm going to
Right.
make the appointment. I'm going to see a doctor. But you want to, sometimes being in a doctor setting is disconcerting, especially when you're not feeling well.
Yes.
What are your symptoms? Do you sleep well at night? Yes. No. I have my journal here that says, I didn't sleep. I wrote it down. I didn't sleep well Monday, and I didn't sleep well Friday. And I'm getting up to use the bathroom more at night. Or I find that, I'm walking and I'm feeling pains when I'm going just from the parking lot to the front of the grocery store. If you write down these symptoms, and I use just a simple app on my phone to track it, but just in the moment saying I'm having this pain, or I'm concerned about this situation that's going on in my body, take note of it. That's the first thing. And then by advocating for yourself when you get to the doctor, a lot of times we've seen with women, they're not taking seriously. They send them home. I'm having this. But if you have this log, it makes you look like you know what you're talking about. It empowers you to say, no, this is not a one-time incident. I have some data here, and I need for you to take this into a different level of attention.
Right.
Um, but like you said, just it's not necessarily easy to start taking those self-care steps when we're so used to giving and serving others.
Absolutely right. Yeah. Well, it sort of, it's a good note to end on. I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me and
Thanks for
sharing your story. I mean, it's really an incredible story, and I think our community can learn from it, certainly. We invite everyone who's been listening to learn more about the campaign and to take action at womenheart.org/29 days of heart. And also, spend some time on our website. As Monique said, we have a lot of really important information to share with women who are maybe dealing with heart disease, but maybe also have relatives and friends who are dealing with heart disease. And we can be certainly a resource for them, as well as access to our peer support network. This is our last Friday Live, but I have really, really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed speaking with Monique and Kenyatta and others. You can find the previous episodes on our website, but please, please, please look out for more storytelling in 2022. I really love this. Is probably one of my favorite parts of my job. So keep an eye out. Look out through our social media channels and follow us. And we look forward to seeing you again.